Sleep is not a passive state, and it is not a break from life. It is a biological necessity that allows the human body and brain to survive and function properly. On average, people spend nearly one-third of their lives sleeping, which alone shows how essential this process is. For a long time, sleep was treated as wasted time, something that could be reduced without consequences. But modern science clearly shows that this belief is false. During sleep, the brain does not shut down. It remains highly active, processing information collected during the day, strengthening important memories, and removing unnecessary data. This process is called memory consolidation, and without it, learning becomes ineffective and unstable. At the same time, the body undergoes intensive regeneration. Muscles relax, tissues repair themselves, and key hormones are released in carefully timed cycles. Growth hormone, which is essential for physical repair and development, is produced mainly during deep sleep, especially in children and adolescents, but adults also depend on it for recovery and long-term health. Sleep also plays a critical role in immune system function. During the night, the body increases the production of immune cells and proteins that fight infections, and when sleep is restricted, immune defense weakens rapidly, increasing the risk of illness. Metabolism is another system strongly influenced by sleep. Blood sugar regulation becomes less efficient when sleep is reduced. Hunger hormones become imbalanced, and the risk of weight gain increases. Most adults require between 7 and 9 hours of sleep per night to maintain optimal physical and mental performance. Some individuals function best closer to 9 hours, while others manage with slightly less, but consistently sleeping under 6 hours leads to measurable cognitive and physiological decline. Sleep pressure builds throughout the day and is controlled by the circadian rhythm, an internal biological clock synchronized with light and darkness. In the evening, melatonin levels rise, body temperature drops slightly, and alertness naturally decreases, preparing the body for rest. Artificial light, caffeine, and stimulation can delay this process, but they do not eliminate the biological need for sleep. When sleep is postponed repeatedly, sleep debt accumulates, and the brain does not fully adapt, even if the person feels awake. Performance, reaction time, and decision-making slowly deteriorate. This is why sleep is not optional and not replaceable. It is a fundamental biological requirement. In the next part, we will examine what happens when sleep is reduced, not eliminated entirely, but shortened over time. When sleep duration is reduced, the effects do not appear immediately dramatic, but they begin silently and accumulate over time. Even a single night of shortened sleep can reduce attention, concentration, and reaction speed. After staying awake for 16 to 20 hours, the brain already functions less efficiently, even though the person may feel alert. Reaction time slows down, decision-making becomes less accurate, and the ability to focus on complex tasks declines. Research shows that being awake for about 24 hours produces cognitive impairment similar to alcohol intoxication, roughly equivalent to consuming 2 large beers. Despite this, many people underestimate the danger of mild sleep deprivation. As wakefulness continues beyond one day, the effects become more visible. After 24 to 48 hours without proper sleep, physical fatigue increases significantly. Muscles feel weaker, coordination worsens, vision may become blurred, and maintaining attention becomes difficult. The brain struggles to process information efficiently, leading to mistakes, forgetfulness, and slower thinking. Emotional regulation is also affected. People become more irritable, less patient, and more prone to stress. The ability to control emotions weakens, making social interaction more difficult. As sleep deprivation progresses beyond 48 hours, the brain enters a critical state. Memory formation becomes severely impaired, speech may become disorganized, and attention breaks down completely. Hallucinations can begin to appear, both visual and auditory, even in individuals with no history of mental illness. These hallucinations are not signs of psychosis, but rather symptoms of an exhausted brain that can no longer maintain stable perception. One of the most dangerous effects during this stage is the appearance of microsleeps. These are brief, involuntary episodes of sleep lasting a few seconds, during which the brain temporarily shuts down. Microsleeps can occur without warning, even while standing, driving, or performing complex tasks. During these moments, muscle control and awareness disappear completely. This makes prolonged wakefulness extremely dangerous, especially in situations that require constant attention. As sleep deprivation continues, the body begins to force shutdown mechanisms. The immune system becomes suppressed, making infections more likely. Hormonal balance collapses, stress hormones rise, and metabolic regulation deteriorates further. The brain prioritizes survival, sacrificing higher cognitive functions. At this stage, staying awake is no longer a conscious choice. The body actively fights wakefulness. This demonstrates a crucial fact. Sleep is not something the brain can permanently override. The longer sleep is denied, the more aggressively the body attempts to reclaim it. In the next part, we will look at extreme cases of sleep deprivation, real-world experiments, and the biological limits of how long a human can remain awake. When sleep deprivation continues beyond 2 or 3 days, the human brain begins to lose its ability to function in a stable and coherent way. At this stage, the problem is no longer simple fatigue. The nervous system becomes overloaded, and basic cognitive processes start to break down. Attention becomes fragmented, thoughts lose continuity, and it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain a clear sense of time and reality. Memory suffers severely, especially short-term memory. New information is no longer stored properly, and even recent events can be forgotten within minutes. Speech may slow down or become disorganized, with sentences losing structure and meaning. The brain struggles to coordinate language, logic, and emotion at the same time. Hallucinations become more frequent and more intense. People may see moving shapes, shadows, or figures that are not there. Sounds can be misinterpreted, and voices may appear without any external source. These hallucinations are not caused by mental illness, but by the brain's inability to maintain sensory stability without rest. Emotional control almost completely collapses. Fear, anxiety, and paranoia increase, while the ability to express emotions clearly disappears. Some individuals report feeling detached from their own body or surroundings, a state known as depersonalization. Physical symptoms also worsen. Muscle weakness becomes more pronounced, balance deteriorates, and fine motor control is lost. The eyes struggle to focus, and visual perception becomes distorted. The immune system is now significantly suppressed, increasing vulnerability to infections and inflammation. Stress hormones, such as cortisol, remain elevated, placing additional strain on the cardiovascular system. Blood pressure may rise, heart rhythm can become irregular, and metabolic processes fall out of balance. At this stage, microsleeps occur constantly. They may last only a few seconds, but they happen repeatedly and unpredictably. During a microsleep, awareness disappears completely, even if the eyes remain open. This makes complex activities extremely dangerous. Driving, operating machinery, or even walking safely becomes nearly impossible. The body is no longer cooperating with conscious effort. It is actively attempting to shut down and recover. Historical and medical observations show that after 72 hours without sleep, most people are no longer capable of rational decision-making. Survival instincts dominate behavior, while higher reasoning fades. This phase marks a clear biological limit. The brain cannot function indefinitely without rest. It will either force sleep or begin to fail in ways that threaten life itself. In the next part, we will examine real-life cases and experiments involving extreme sleep deprivation and what they reveal about the absolute limits of human wakefulness. Extreme sleep deprivation has been observed not only in laboratories, but also in real-life situations and documented experiments. One of the most famous cases involved a teenage student who attempted to stay awake for as long as possible as part of a school science project. He managed to remain awake for 11 days, which equals 264 hours. During the first days, the effects were mild, including fatigue, reduced concentration, and mood changes. However, as the days passed, his condition deteriorated rapidly. Memory loss became severe, speech became slow and confused, and his ability to recognize objects and people weakened. Hallucinations appeared frequently, and emotional control nearly disappeared. By the final days, he was unable to perform basic cognitive tasks. Although he survived and eventually recovered after extended sleep, The experiment demonstrated how fragile the brain becomes without rest. Other documented cases show similar patterns. Individuals who stayed awake for several days often reported intense visual and auditory hallucinations, confusion about time, and difficulty distinguishing reality from imagination. In some cases, people experienced paranoia and extreme anxiety, believing they were being watched or threatened. These reactions were not caused by mental illness, but by neurological overload. Animal studies provide even clearer evidence of biological limits. In controlled experiments, animals deprived entirely of sleep died after approximately 11 to 14 days. Death was not caused by exhaustion alone, but by systemic failure. The immune system collapsed, body temperature regulation failed, and infections spread rapidly. While direct human experiments of this kind are ethically impossible, these findings strongly suggest that total sleep deprivation is ultimately fatal. Even before reaching such extremes, the body attempts to protect itself. Microsleeps become longer and more frequent. The brain forces short shutdowns to preserve essential functions. This is why it is almost impossible for humans to stay awake indefinitely. The body actively resists prolonged wakefulness. Importantly, recovery from extreme sleep deprivation is not immediate. After long periods without sleep, people may require several days of extended rest to restore normal cognitive function. Some effects, such as impaired attention or mood instability, can persist even after apparent recovery. These cases demonstrate a crucial reality. Sleep is not simply a comfort or habit. It is a fundamental biological requirement. When it is denied, the body and brain deteriorate in predictable, dangerous ways. In the next part, we will compare sleep deprivation to other forms of impairment, including alcohol intoxication, and examine why society often underestimates the risks of insufficient sleep. One of the most striking comparisons used by scientists to explain sleep deprivation is its similarity to alcohol intoxication. After a full night without sleep, cognitive performance drops to a level comparable to being legally drunk in many countries. Reaction time slows, coordination weakens, and judgment becomes unreliable. Yet unlike alcohol, sleep deprivation often goes unnoticed by the person experiencing it. People tend to believe they are functioning normally, even when objective tests show significant impairment. This false sense of competence makes sleep loss particularly dangerous. Studies show that staying awake for 24 hours can reduce reaction speed by up to 20%. Decision-making becomes inconsistent, and the brain struggles to assess risk accurately. In practical terms, this means that tired individuals are more likely to make poor choices, underestimate danger, and overestimate their own abilities. Driving while sleep-deprived is especially risky. Microsleeps can occur behind the wheel, even at highway speeds. During these brief moments, the brain disconnects completely from the environment. Unlike alcohol-related impairment, there is often no warning. The eyes may remain open, but awareness disappears. This is one reason why fatigue-related accidents are so difficult to prevent. The danger extends beyond transportation. In workplaces that require precision, such as healthcare, aviation, or heavy industry, sleep deprivation significantly increases the risk of critical errors. Studies involving medical staff show higher rates of mistakes after extended shifts with insufficient sleep. Similar patterns are observed in pilots, machine operators, and emergency responders. Chronic sleep restriction also has cumulative effects. Sleeping 5 or 6 hours per night may not feel dramatic, but over weeks and months it leads to persistent cognitive decline. Attention span shortens, memory becomes less reliable, and emotional stability weakens. Importantly, the brain does not fully adapt to chronic sleep loss. Even when individuals report feeling used to short sleep, objective performance remains impaired. This has serious implications for modern society, where long work hours and constant stimulation encourage sleep reduction. The normalization of fatigue has created a culture that underestimates its dangers. Unlike alcohol or drugs, sleep deprivation is rarely treated as a serious impairment. However, scientific evidence clearly shows that its effects are comparable and in some cases even more unpredictable. In the next part, we will examine the long-term health consequences of chronic sleep deprivation, including its impact on the heart, metabolism, and overall lifespan. When sleep deprivation becomes chronic, Its effects extend far beyond temporary fatigue or reduced concentration. Long-term lack of sleep places continuous stress on the body, slowly damaging multiple biological systems. One of the most affected systems is the cardiovascular system. Research shows that people who regularly sleep fewer than 6 hours per night have a significantly higher risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, and stroke. During normal sleep, blood pressure drops and the heart receives a period of relative rest. When sleep is shortened, this recovery phase is reduced or lost entirely, forcing the heart to remain under constant strain. Hormonal balance is also disrupted. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, remains elevated for longer periods, increasing inflammation and accelerating wear on the body. At the same time, hormones responsible for appetite regulation become imbalanced. Levels of ghrelin, which increases hunger, rise, while leptin, which signals fullness, decreases. This leads to increased appetite, cravings for high-calorie foods, and a higher risk of obesity. Metabolic health suffers as well. Chronic sleep loss reduces insulin sensitivity, making it harder for the body to regulate blood sugar levels. Over time, this increases the risk of type 2 diabetes. The immune system is also weakened by persistent sleep deprivation. The production of immune cells declines, and the body becomes less effective at fighting infections. People who sleep poorly are more likely to get sick and take longer to recover. Mental health is closely linked to sleep quality. Long-term sleep deprivation is associated with higher rates of depression, anxiety, and mood disorders. Emotional resilience decreases, and stress becomes harder to manage. Cognitive decline may also accelerate. Studies suggest that chronic sleep loss contributes to impaired memory, reduced attention span, and a higher risk of neurodegenerative diseases later in life. Importantly, these effects often develop gradually, making them easy to ignore. Many people adapt their expectations to lower performance without realizing the cause. However, the damage continues to accumulate beneath the surface. Sleep debt cannot be fully repaid with occasional long nights of rest. Regular, sufficient sleep is required to maintain long-term health. This highlights a critical reality. Sleep is not only essential for daily functioning, but also for protecting the body against long-term disease and premature aging. In the final part, we will summarize why sleep is indispensable and why modern society must reconsider its relationship with rest. Sleep is one of the most underestimated foundations of human health, performance, and survival. It is often treated as flexible, optional, or replaceable, yet biological evidence shows the opposite. Sleep supports nearly every critical system in the body. Without it, the brain cannot function reliably, the body cannot recover properly, and long-term health begins to deteriorate. Short-term sleep deprivation reduces attention, reaction time, and judgment, increasing the risk of accidents and mistakes. As wakefulness continues, emotional control weakens, memory collapses, and perception becomes unstable. Hallucinations, confusion, and microsleeps appear, showing that the brain is no longer able to maintain consciousness without rest. Extreme cases and scientific observations demonstrate that total sleep deprivation leads to systemic failure and ultimately threatens life itself. Chronic sleep loss, even when less dramatic, is equally dangerous in the long run. It increases the risk of heart disease, obesity, diabetes, immune dysfunction, and mental health disorders. These effects accumulate slowly, often unnoticed, until they reach a critical point. Modern society encourages constant activity, long work hours, and late-night stimulation, creating a culture where fatigue is normalized. Many people accept reduced performance as normal without realizing that sleep deprivation is the underlying cause. Unlike alcohol or drugs, sleep loss is rarely recognized as a serious impairment, despite producing comparable cognitive deficits. The body has protective mechanisms, such as microsleeps and increased sleep pressure, but these are emergency responses, not solutions. Sleep debt cannot be permanently ignored or fully repaid with occasional rest. The brain and body require regular, sufficient sleep to function optimally. This makes sleep a non-negotiable biological requirement, not a lifestyle choice. Prioritizing sleep is not a sign of weakness or laziness, but a fundamental investment in health, safety, and long-term performance. Understanding the true cost of sleep deprivation is essential, both at an individual level and at a societal level. When sleep is respected, the brain functions clearly, the body recovers effectively, and resilience increases. When it is neglected, the consequences are predictable, cumulative, and dangerous. Sleep is not the absence of activity. It is one of the most active and essential processes the human body performs.